I entered the wrong room. The two alien women inside wouldn't let me leave. Elia's ward was not a man known for mistakes. In his work as a xenolinguistics consultant aboard the multi-species diplomatic station Orlia, he had navigated delicate negotiations between species whose languages sometimes contained 300 tones and no shared vocabulary. Yet today, fatigue and distraction combined to create a misstep he could never have imagined. The station was larger than any city on Earth, with corridors that twisted and curved in ways that made human architecture seem quaint and predictable. One moment he was walking toward the briefing chambers for a scheduled meeting, and the next, he had turned down a hallway that seemed unfamiliar. The door at the end of the hall looked ordinary enough. It was metallic, smooth, and unmarked. He assumed it was an unused storage room. He pushed it open. The room inside was not empty. Elias froze, caught mid-step. Two figures stood in the center, their shapes humanoid but alien. Their skin shimmered with subtle patterns, shifting like sunlight on water. Their eyes were larger than a human's, luminous and unblinking, and their fingers moved with a grace and precision that made him aware of his own clumsiness. "Ah," said one of them, her voice musical, echoing softly in the room. "You have come." Elias swallowed. I'm sorry." "I thought this room," the other said, her voice calm, precise, "is not entered by accident. Once the threshold is crossed, the engagement begins. You cannot leave until it completes." Elias blinked. He had read about alien rituals before. He had studied them, written papers on them, but this was different. He had not been invited. He had not signed any forms. He had not done anything, yet apparently, according to their rules, he had done everything. I think there's been a mistake," he stammered, stepping backward. The floor was slightly elevated, polished to reflect their shimmering forms. Every movement felt amplified, watched, recorded in some subtle, alien way. The two women did not move closer. They did not raise their voices. They simply stood, calm and unyielding, as though the room itself was alive and had decided he could not leave. Elias realized then that there was no threat here. No weapons, no force. The power was in certainty. "Engagement," the first woman said again. "It is not negotiable. The procedure is ancient. You are part of it now." He exhaled slowly. His training told him to observe first, act second. He had faced alien diplomats who could reduce entire councils to silence with a glance. He could handle this if he kept his wits. What is required?" he asked, trying to mask his panic. The second woman's eyes narrowed, not in anger but in focus. "The ritual tests understanding, patience, empathy, adaptation. Completion comes when the threshold is acknowledged and a bridge is formed." Elias blinked. That sounded, in human terms, like a very long conversation. He had a feeling this was not just an idle chat. Their species had lifespans measured in centuries, and their rituals could take years. Yet he also knew that humans had one advantage that aliens often underestimated: improvisation. Humans could find meaning, create connections, and adapt in ways that rigid cultures could not. He nodded slowly. I see, and I suppose I should participate." "Yes," they said in unison, not as a command but as a fact of existence. He took a deep breath and stepped fully into the room, closing the door behind him. The metallic click echoed like a heartbeat in the silence. At first, nothing happened. The women watched him silently, as if waiting for something to unfold naturally. Elias felt a strange mix of anxiety and curiosity. He decided to start small. "My name is Elias Ward," he said. "I am human from Earth. I study language and culture. I did not intend to intrude." The first woman tilted her head, the shifting patterns on her skin brightening slightly. "Intent is irrelevant. You are here. The ritual begins regardless. Tell us what your presence brings to the threshold." Elias hesitated. "My presence brings curiosity, perhaps, and adaptability. Humans are quick to learn and quick to adjust." The second woman considered this. Adaptation is rare. Few species can transform misunderstanding into connection. Elias realized then that this was not merely a test of endurance or patience. It was a test of humanity itself. The women were not trying to scare him. They were observing, evaluating, waiting to see how he responded under unfamiliar rules. He took another deep breath. I will do my best to understand, to learn, to respond honestly. The room seemed to shift slightly, not physically but emotionally. The air felt denser, charged with the sense of attention. He spoke about his work, about humans, tendency to find solutions where none seemed possible, about the stories they told each other to make sense of chaos. The first woman's eyes widened in subtle surprise. Your species, you create meaning from imperfection. That is unusual. Elias smiled faintly. We've had to. The universe is unpredictable. We survive by improvising, by connecting, by sharing our stories. The second woman moved a step closer, and though her motion was quiet and fluid, Elias felt a shift in the atmosphere. Stories, empathy, connection. You speak with authenticity, not formality. It is compelling. They began asking him questions about humans, about Earth, about his personal experiences. Each question was layered, testing not only knowledge but understanding and adaptability. Elias responded honestly, drawing on his experience and instincts. He told them about human mistakes, human resilience, and human imagination. Every answer seemed to ripple through the room, changing the patterns on the women's skin, making them shimmer and shift with curiosity. Hours passed, though time in the station was measured differently. Elias lost track. He no longer thought about the wrong door, the mistake, or the anxiety of being trapped. The room had become a laboratory of culture, and he was both the subject and the participant. At one point he paused and asked, "Do you always conduct this ritual alone without prior notice?" The first woman's voice was soft, almost amused. "No, normally participants come willingly. They prepare. But your error reveals a quality we rarely see, spontaneity." And spontaneity, Elias said, can sometimes solve problems that planning cannot. The second woman tilted her head. The shimmer on her skin brightened. "Perhaps, you may be instructive." By the time the station's artificial sun shifted to simulate evening, Elias realized that he was no longer afraid. The two alien women were not adversaries. They were observers, and he was demonstrating a quality unique to humanity, the ability to turn misunderstanding into mutual understanding. "Are we close to completion?" he asked cautiously. The first woman paused. "Completion is measured not in time, but in transformation." "You are beginning to transform the threshold." The second woman's voice was almost reverent. "Your presence, your manner, your adaptability, these affect the ritual. It is unusual but promising." Elias felt a swell of relief. He still did not know exactly what would happen next. Perhaps tomorrow, perhaps later in the day, the ritual would end. But for now, he understood something essential. Humans had a power beyond technology, beyond strength, beyond rigid logic. They had the ability to create connection, to improvise empathy, to change expectations simply by being fully themselves. As the artificial sun dimmed, Elias allowed himself to relax. The women continued to watch him, their eyes curious but not threatening. He realized that he had stepped into the wrong room, but perhaps he had also stepped into the right moment. The ritual was only beginning, and he, a simple human among beings of centuries-old traditions, might just teach them something they had never known. And for the first time that day, Elias smiled genuinely, not from relief or triumph, but from understanding. Sometimes the wrong door led to the right lesson. The next day on the station arrived in soft artificial light, though Elias had long since lost track of real time. The two alien women were already waiting, standing as still as statues, yet somehow radiating an energy that made the room feel alive. He felt no fear, only a curious mixture of anticipation and calm. He realized that the threshold he had crossed yesterday had not been a trap, it had been a test, a challenge, and perhaps an opportunity. "Good morning," he said carefully, bowing his head slightly in acknowledgement. The first woman tilted her luminous head, and the shifting patterns on her skin seemed to brighten at the gesture. The second remained silent, observing, unblinking, yet Elias sensed an expectation in the way she held herself. "You return," the first woman said, her voice musical and steady. "Yesterday was enlightening. Today the threshold continues. Completion is closer." Elias swallowed. "I understand. And I am ready to continue." He had no idea what completion truly meant, but he trusted that by being genuine and adaptable, he could navigate whatever came next. The room remained quiet, but the air was charged. Elias decided to begin with what had worked yesterday: human storytelling. He spoke about Earth, about the strange patterns of human cities, the unpredictable weather, and the small joys people found in ordinary lives. He told them about human creativity, about mistakes turned into lessons, and about the unending curiosity that had carried his species into space. The first woman listened with intense focus. The shimmer on her skin moved with every word, subtle patterns glowing and fading like sunlight on water. "Your species, you weave understanding through narrative," she said. "It is effective, more than any rigid calculation." Elias nodded. "Humans learn from stories because we see ourselves in them. We find patterns in chaos and we connect through shared experiences." The second woman stepped closer, her movement fluid and silent. She extended a hand, not in a gesture of command but of curiosity. "Tell us more." "How does your species create connection?" Elias thought for a moment. "We listen, we ask questions, we admit mistakes, we improvise, we find ways to relate even when differences seem impossible to bridge. I think that is why I am here." By accident, yes, but perhaps also by purpose. The women remained quiet for a long time, their attention fixed entirely on him. Elias felt no judgment, only the patient scrutiny of beings who measured truth in subtle details. Then slowly, the first woman spoke. "You do not fear our rituals, you do not resist, you adapt. That is rare, completion may come sooner than expected." Elias smiled. "I think I am learning from you as well. Humans adapt, yes, but we also observe. We learn when others teach us, even when we don't understand the rules at first." The second woman's eyes glimmered brighter, a pattern rippling across her skin that reminded Elias of water flowing over stones. "Your presence, it changes the threshold. The ritual evolves because of you." It became clear that what had seemed rigid yesterday was not fixed at all. Their ancient ceremonial rules were like the outlines of a song, set in tradition, but flexible when a new note appeared. Elias realized that humans were uniquely suited to this kind of improvisation. Where their species followed structure, humans thrived in adaptation. For hours, they continued the ritual. It was not about physical challenges or danger, but about understanding, empathy, and insight. The women asked questions about morality, about problem-solving, about the human approach to uncertainty. Elias answered honestly, drawing from history, philosophy, and his own experiences. He spoke of how humans had survived in countless environments, how they had learned to cooperate across vast differences, and how they valued creativity as a form of survival. At one point, the first woman asked, "Your species is unpredictable. Does that not create chaos?" Elias thought carefully. "It does sometimes, but chaos can also create opportunity. Humans learn from the unexpected. We turn mistakes into discoveries. The unknown is not always a threat. It can be a chance to connect, to grow." The second woman tilted her head. "You speak of balance between chaos and understanding. This is new. No participant has ever influenced the ritual so directly." Elias felt a thrill of pride, but he kept his tone humble. "I do not wish to dominate your ritual. I only wish to understand and perhaps help us both learn something. Time flowed differently in the room. Elias lost track of the station's day cycles entirely. The women watched, listened, and occasionally posed questions that seemed impossible to answer. Yet every question became a conversation, and every answer revealed a quality of human ingenuity and empathy that the women had rarely encountered. "You show adaptability not as a tool but as a mindset," the first woman said finally. "It is remarkable. It is why completion approaches faster than expected." Elias leaned back slightly, exhausted but exhilarated. "I think the key is that humans, we do not just react. We imagine, we create meaning. Even in confusion, we find a way forward." The second woman's voice was softer now, almost reflective. "Your species may teach us, not through force, not through dominance, but through understanding. This is rare." Elias realized then that the ritual was not merely about him following their rules. It was about them learning from him as much as he was learning from them. Humanity's greatest power was not technology or strength, but the ability to create connection, to improvise meaning, and to navigate complexity with curiosity. Finally, after what felt like an eternity and yet also no time at all, the first woman spoke. "Completion is recognized." Elias blinked. That is it," the second woman smiled, a small, radiant expression that seemed almost impossible on her alien features. "Yes, you have transformed the threshold. You have completed what no other participant could. By being human, you have altered the ritual itself." Relief and awe flooded him. I didn't think it would end this way. I thought I was trapped." "You were never trapped," the first woman said. "You were learning, you were teaching. The threshold was a mirror." Elias stood fully, stretching muscles stiff from sitting and speaking for so long. He felt a profound sense of connection, not just with the two women, but with the possibilities of humanity itself. One human, willing to improvise, to listen, and to share stories, had changed an ancient ritual that spanned centuries. The second woman stepped aside, signaling the door. Elias expected it to open automatically, or perhaps to remain closed for further ceremonial acknowledgement. Instead, she extended her hand in a gesture of choice. "You may leave, not because the ritual allows it, but because you have earned it." Elias hesitated only briefly, then grasped the hand, feeling the strange warmth of her skin, the subtle vibrations that seemed almost like a heartbeat. The door slid open smoothly, and the bright corridors of the station welcomed him back. As he stepped out, the station AI's voice chimed in, calm and neutral. "Unauthorized ceremonial engagement detected. Protocol review recommended." Elias smiled. He did not care about protocol. He had learned something far more valuable. Humans could turn mistakes into opportunities, curiosity into connection, and improvisation into influence. Walking down the hall, he thought about the two alien women. They had taught him patience, observation, and the subtle power of ritual. He had taught them humanity, the kind of humanity that solved problems with empathy and imagination rather than force. He realized that one small step into the wrong room had created ripples far beyond the confines of that chamber. Later, when he returned to his quarters, he recorded his experiences meticulously. He described the shimmer of their skin, the musical quality of their voices, and the way that human storytelling had bridged centuries of cultural expectation. His log ended with a simple note. "Sometimes, being human is the most powerful thing in the universe." And in the quiet of the station, far from Earth but connected in every imaginable way, Elias felt a thrill of possibility. Humanity had not conquered through strength, nor had it commanded through fear. Instead, it had conquered understanding itself, turning an accidental intrusion into a moment of shared revelation. The station's corridors hummed with life around him, carrying the quiet energy of countless species. Elias walked among them, one human among many, yet feeling uniquely capable. He had entered the wrong room, but he had also entered a new understanding, a bridge between worlds, built on curiosity, adaptability, and the endless creativity of his kind. For the first time in his career, Elias truly believed in the phrase he had often thought of but never fully appreciated. Humans, even alone, could change the galaxy. And perhaps, he thought, that was what the universe had been waiting for all along. Elias had expected that after the ritual, life aboard the station would return to normal. Yet as he walked through the corridors, he sensed something different. The air felt lighter, somehow charged with quiet curiosity. Other species glanced at him with subtle interest, their expressions almost imperceptibly changed. Elias realized that yesterday and today had done more than complete a ritual, they had shifted perception. Humans, who were often underestimated, had shown a capacity for adaptability and empathy that even the most ancient alien cultures could not ignore. He paused at a junction where a pair of crystalline beings studied a holomap. Their heads turned in unison as if sensing his presence. Elias offered a polite nod. One of them returned it with a careful gesture of acknowledgement. He understood immediately. Somehow, the ritual had not only transformed the threshold inside the room, but had sent a ripple through the station. Humans were no longer merely visitors. They were participants in something larger, a force defined not by strength, but by understanding and connection. Elias continued walking, reflecting on what had happened. The two alien women, the guardians of the ritual, had treated him with patience and curiosity, yet never with condescension. They had allowed him to teach and learn simultaneously. He wondered how many species could do that. Perhaps none, he thought. The human's ability to improvise, to communicate with empathy, and to create meaning from misunderstanding was rare in the galaxy. It was not just a skill, it was a gift. As he reached the observation deck, he paused to look at the expanse of space. Stars twinkled against the darkness, distant worlds drifting silently through the void. The station hummed softly beneath his feet, a testament to countless hours of engineering and collaboration. Humans had built this station, yes, but they had done so alongside dozens of alien species, proving again that adaptability and cooperation could overcome even the most daunting challenges. The door behind him slid open, and he turned to see the two alien women standing there watching him. He had not noticed them approach. The first woman's eyes shimmered softly, reflecting the distant light of a nearby star. The second's gaze was steady and calm. They had returned, not to continue the ritual, but seemingly to observe the aftereffects. Elias realized that the ritual's completion had not meant the end of their curiosity, it had sparked it. "You have walked beyond the threshold," the first woman said. "Yet your presence continues to influence our perception. How is it that one species can transform understanding so completely?" Elias smiled faintly. "Humans do not always know the answer at first. We rely on curiosity, and we try to understand before we judge. I think that is why it seems so unusual to you. We see problems as puzzles and people as partners in solving them." The second woman tilted her head. "Curiosity, adaptation, connection, these are not mere traits. They are choices, conscious choices that shape outcomes." "Yes," Elias said, "and every choice matters. We cannot control everything, but we can influence the world around us by how we act, by how we relate to others." The first woman took a small step forward. "Yesterday, you transformed a ritual that has lasted centuries. You were not aware of your influence, yet it was profound. Do you understand the significance?" Elias shook his head gently. "I understand it now. At the time, I was simply trying to respond honestly and learn. I never expected to change anything." The second woman's expression softened, her shifting skin patterns reflecting subtle shades of violet and gold. "That is the essence of your species. Your impact is not forced. It is natural. It grows from your being, not from command. That is why completion occurred so quickly." Elias felt a warm sense of pride, but he kept his humility. I only did what any human would try to do in my place: listen, observe, and connect. They remained silent for a moment, and Elias noticed a subtle change in their posture. They were less formal, more relaxed, as if his presence had allowed them to reconsider their own rituals. He realized then that the human ability to influence was not about dominance or power. It was about inspiring transformation through understanding. "You have opened something in us," the first woman said finally, "a possibility we had never considered. Perhaps the ritual can evolve, not just for outsiders, but for our own species as well." Elias felt a surge of excitement. "You mean my being here could help change your culture?" "Yes," the second woman replied. "By observing your adaptability and empathy, we see new ways to approach tradition. Your species demonstrates that even fixed rituals can grow without losing meaning." "This is enlightening." Elias laughed softly, the sound echoing gently through the observation deck. "I never thought I'd be a teacher. I came here by mistake." "Perhaps mistakes are not mistakes at all," the first woman said. "Sometimes they are lessons waiting to be learned." Elias nodded, feeling a deep sense of connection with them. The two women, ancient in knowledge and precise in their ways, were capable of vast wisdom. Yet in meeting a single human, they had discovered something beyond their expectations. And he, in turn, had learned that the power of humanity lay not in technology or force, but in creativity, curiosity, and the ability to connect. The conversation continued for hours, though time had little meaning aboard the station. Elias shared more stories, more experiences, and more insights into how humans navigated a universe filled with uncertainty. He spoke of how humans had built civilizations, faced disasters, and yet always sought understanding. He spoke of empathy, of imagination, and of the willingness to try, even when failure seemed likely. The two alien women listened intently, their expressions reflecting subtle waves of thought and emotion. They asked questions, not to challenge him, but to explore perspectives their own species had not considered. Each question was an invitation, and each answer was a bridge. Elias realized that the ritual's true purpose was not merely ceremonial. It was a conduit for shared understanding, and humans were uniquely suited to participate in it. By the end of the day, Elias felt a profound sense of accomplishment. He had entered a room by accident, participated in a ritual he barely understood, and yet had contributed to something far larger than himself. The two women no longer regarded him as an outsider. They regarded him as a teacher, a collaborator, and a symbol of what humanity could achieve. "You may leave," the first woman said, her voice calm and clear. "But know this, your presence will continue to influence our species. The threshold you crossed is not confined to one room or one ritual. It has expanded." Elias nodded, feeling the weight and wonder of her words. He stepped toward the door, the station's corridors stretching ahead like veins of light and metal. Yet he did not feel small or insignificant. He had discovered something essential about himself and his species, that understanding, empathy, and adaptability could transcend barriers and inspire change. As he walked away, he looked back once. The two alien women stood silently, their eyes fixed on him, yet their expressions were no longer rigid. They were curious, thoughtful, and, in some subtle way, grateful. Elias realized that he had left a mark, not with force but with humanity. The station AI chimed quietly. "Observation complete. Influence detected. Protocol adjustment recommended." Elias smiled to himself. Protocols could always catch up. Humanity had moved forward already. He paused at a large observation window, gazing at a planet drifting slowly beneath the station. Its surface shimmered with oceans and forests, mountains and deserts. The planet was alive, yet so distant. Yet Elias felt a connection, a sense that his species, though small and seemingly fragile, had the power to shape understanding and cooperation across galaxies. The two alien women had not only permitted him to leave, they had transformed their own understanding of ritual, culture, and connection. Humans, he thought, had a subtle but profound influence wherever they went. Not through conquest, not through force, but through presence, curiosity, and the courage to engage with the unknown. Later, Elias returned to his quarters, exhausted but invigorated. He recorded every detail in his log, the patterns of the women's skin, the cadence of their voices, the subtle shifts in their thinking. He wrote not just as a scientist, but as a human who had glimpsed the potential of his species. He understood that humans had qualities no other species possessed: imagination, adaptability, empathy, and the ability to create bridges where others saw walls. That night, as the station drifted silently through space, Elias felt a quiet sense of possibility. The universe was vast and full of unknowns. There were mistakes yet to be made, thresholds yet to be crossed, and encounters yet to shape the future. Humans would meet them all not by chance but by choice. And in that knowledge, Elias felt both small and immense. Small because the universe was infinite and ancient. Immense because humanity's unique qualities could change not only outcomes but perspectives. A single human, he realized, could inspire transformation simply by being present, curious, and empathetic. The next morning, the station buzzed with activity as usual. Aliens of every shape, color, and size moved through corridors and observation decks. Yet somewhere beneath the hum, a quiet ripple persisted. Humanity's mark was subtle, invisible to most, yet undeniable. Elias could feel it. The ritual had ended, but its impact would endure. He looked forward to the next challenge, the next accidental doorway, the next opportunity to demonstrate what humans could do. And he knew this. The galaxy, vast and mysterious, was full of thresholds. Some were meant to be crossed by chance. Some were meant to be crossed by courage. And some, perhaps, were waiting for humans to turn mistakes into bridges, uncertainty into understanding, and curiosity into connection. Elias smiled to himself, stepping into the corridor once more. Humans, he thought, had a power unlike any other, the power to change minds, hearts, and even rituals. Not by Elias had grown used to the quiet hum of the station, yet today felt different. The corridors were familiar, yet something in the air hinted at anticipation. Reports from other sectors indicated a subtle shift. Species who had once ignored humans now seemed slightly more attentive, curious, as if a single ripple from the ritual had begun to spread. Elias had long learned that small actions often had larger consequences, and he suspected this was one of those moments. He moved toward the observation deck, not because of orders, but because he felt compelled to. The expanse of space always had a way of putting things into perspective, reminding him of humanity's smallness and yet its surprising impact. Stars glittered in the darkness, distant and steady. Planets turned lazily on their axes, worlds filled with life and stories Elias could only imagine. And somewhere in that vastness, the human's influence was quietly threading its way through cultures, shaping understanding without a single weapon or command. As he approached the deck, he noticed the two alien women standing at the threshold of the observation bay. They were still, their forms illuminated by the pale glow of distant stars. Elias felt no fear. By now he understood that their presence was a form of connection, not constraint. They were watching, but not to judge. They were observing the continued effects of what had begun in the wrong room. "You return," the first woman said, her voice as smooth and measured as ever. "The threshold you crossed is spreading. Your species' influence is being noted beyond this station. We wish to understand how it continues to evolve." Elias considered her words carefully. "It evolves naturally," he said. "Humans do not force change. We respond, adapt, and connect. Other species notice our actions, our choices, and sometimes they adopt new ideas or behaviors because they see their value." The second woman's eyes shimmered with curiosity. Adaptation through observation. That is rare. Others usually require instruction or command. You influence without intention. Yes, Elias replied. Sometimes the best way to lead is by example. When others see curiosity, creativity, and empathy in action, it inspires change without force. The first woman's luminous patterns pulsed slowly. Yesterday and today, your presence transformed a ritual. Now, your presence is beginning to influence the station itself. This is remarkable for one individual. Can you explain how humans accomplish such effects? Elias smiled faintly. We are small, yes, but we think in terms of connection. We notice patterns, improvise solutions, and share knowledge. That combination allows even one human to create ripples. The second woman tilted her head, examining him as though weighing the truth of his words. Ripples. That is an apt metaphor. Your species. Actions propagate through the environment in subtle ways, altering perceptions and behaviors without direct interference. It is fascinating. Elias felt a surge of warmth. He realized that his accidental entry into the wrong room had created a chain of events that was still unfolding. His presence, his humanity, had quietly changed perspectives, and the two women now sought to understand the mechanics of it. They were scholars, students of life, and yet he, a single human, was teaching them in return. "May I ask something?" Elias said. "Why do you study these rituals so closely? What is their ultimate purpose?" The first woman responded thoughtfully. "Rituals are more than formalities. They are mirrors of culture, of understanding, of shared values. They are designed to teach participants empathy, patience, and insight. They endure because they shape the mind and spirit. Yet rigid adherence can limit growth. You have demonstrated that improvisation can enhance meaning." Elias nodded. "Sometimes rules are not meant to trap us. They are meant to guide, and when combined with creativity and understanding, they can do more than we ever imagined." The second woman's gaze softened, the patterns of her skin shifting like gentle waves. "Indeed. The threshold you crossed revealed the potential for evolution within tradition. You have demonstrated that even the most ancient practices can expand through curiosity and connection." Elias reflected on that. Humans often thrived in chaos because they saw opportunity in it. They embraced mistakes as lessons, differences as chances to learn, and uncertainty as a path to discovery. That approach had carried them from small villages to interstellar travel. It was not power in the usual sense, but influence born of insight and adaptability. "You speak as though humans are capable of profound understanding," the first woman said. "Yet your species is young. How do you reconcile youth with wisdom?" Elias chuckled softly. "Perhaps we are not wise yet, but curiosity drives us. We learn quickly, adapt faster, and value connection more than isolation. That combination allows us to achieve things older species sometimes cannot." The second woman's expression, subtle as it was, reflected amazement. "You speak not with arrogance but with clarity. That is unusual. Most species claim wisdom without understanding. You demonstrate it through thought and action." Elias realized then that he had become an unwitting ambassador of humanity. His accidental engagement in the ritual had not only transformed their understanding, but was now actively shaping perceptions beyond the room itself. Humans could inspire change not through control, but through presence, empathy, and creativity. "Elias," the first woman said, her tone shifting slightly, "your actions have created interest among other species on the station. They observe, they question, and they adapt. What is your advice for those who follow in your footsteps?" Elias paused, considering carefully. "I would say remain curious, observe deeply, listen more than you speak, act with empathy, and do not fear mistakes. They are often the best teachers. And remember, connection is more powerful than command." The second woman nodded slowly. "Connection over command. A simple yet profound philosophy. Your species embodies this naturally." As Elias spoke, he noticed subtle changes around the station. Crew members of various species walked with more attentiveness, paused longer to listen to one another, and engaged in conversations that seemed more meaningful. Small gestures, shared information, polite acknowledgments, collaborative problem-solving were becoming more common. He realized that his influence, born of honesty and curiosity, was spreading in ways he could not have anticipated. "You have not only completed a ritual," the first woman said, "but you have sown the seeds of evolution within the minds of many. Your species may yet become a bridge for understanding across the galaxy." Elias felt a profound sense of responsibility. He had entered the wrong room by accident, yet he had discovered something essential. Humans were capable of shaping understanding without domination, inspiring change without coercion. He understood now that influence was subtle, quiet, and powerful precisely because it relied on authenticity. The second woman stepped closer, her voice softening. "Will you continue to act with this awareness, to use your species' abilities not for conquest but for connection?" Elias nodded firmly. "I will. We humans have much to learn, but we also have the capacity to teach. Our influence will come from what we do and how we relate to others, not from force." The first woman's eyes shimmered with something almost like admiration. "Then the threshold is truly transformed. You have shown that understanding can evolve beyond structure, that empathy can expand perception, and that curiosity can alter tradition. Your presence has created a legacy." Elias felt a swell of humility and pride. Legacy was not a word he had considered lightly. Humans were small, fragile, and often underestimated. Yet in their ability to connect, adapt, and imagine, they possessed a subtle but profound power. One person, acting with curiosity and empathy, could inspire change across species and systems that no single authority could enforce. The second woman extended her hand in a gesture of respect. Elias hesitated, then took it, feeling a pulse of warmth and acknowledgement. "Thank you," she said simply, "for being human," he smiled. "No, thank you for allowing me to be part of your understanding." The corridor beyond the observation deck opened, beckoning him back to the hum of the station. Elias walked through it, carrying with him not just the memory of the ritual, but the knowledge that humanity's influence was quiet, subtle, and extraordinary. He had entered the wrong room, yet he had discovered a truth far greater than any mistake could have revealed. The power of understanding, empathy, and adaptability could reshape worlds. As he continued through the station, he noticed more signs of change. Species that had once been distant now engaged in collaboration. Small innovations in communication, coordination, and mutual respect were spreading through the corridors. Humans were not leaders in the conventional sense, yet their impact was undeniable. Through patience, curiosity, and connection, they were teaching the galaxy to see differently. Elias paused at a large window, gazing at a distant system. Planets rotated silently, moons traced their orbits, and distant stars blinked like ancient eyes. He felt both small and immense, small in the vast universe, immense in the quiet but profound effect of his species. Humanity's strength was not in domination or force, but in the ability to connect, to inspire, and to transform perception. The two alien women watched him from the threshold, no longer rigid, no longer distant. They had learned from him as much as he had learned from them. Their species, rituals had evolved, expanded, and grown because a human had entered by mistake, spoken honestly, and acted with empathy. Elias smiled, feeling the depth of the moment. He had entered the wrong room, yet he had discovered humanity's most powerful gift. One person, one species, could change minds, cultures, and perhaps even the course of understanding across galaxies. And the universe, he realized, was beginning to notice. The station hummed softly, carrying the quiet energy of countless species. Elias walked among them, not as a conqueror, not as a diplomat, but as a human. a single representative of a species capable of curiosity, connection, and transformation. He knew that the ripples of his actions would continue, quietly shaping perception, inspiring empathy, and demonstrating that even the smallest presence could leave an enduring mark. For Elias, the wrong room had become the right lesson. And in that lesson lay the true power of humanity, the ability to inspire, to connect, and to change the universe simply by being fully, authentically human.